Hi everyone. So I don't know whether you've noticed, if you pay close attention to what is happening on both sides of the Atlantic, the progressive sort of movement on both sides of the Atlantic, the leaders of them at least, Bernie Sanders in the United States and Jeremy Corbyn over here, coincidentally right at the same time, are facing criticism from their base. Both of them at the same time. So it's in a bit of trouble. Now, Bernie got into trouble over a tweet that I will go into in some videos that I'm doing on him tomorrow. So I won't go into that tweet now, but suffice it to say, the tweet looks innocuous. You would think, most people would look at that and think, what? My immediately thought was, he's going to blow it if he continues doing this. And I'll cover that in a video. But the trouble over here with Jeremy Corbyn started last week. With these guys. Now, I've done these guys, ladies and gents, these spineless splitters is what I've been calling them, and they are spineless splitters because they split and they will not hold a by-election. There's no way to force them to have a by-election, I don't think either. I've been looking into that and it looks like, yeah, there's no way to force them into a by-election, not unless they do one of three things and none of them have. So, it looks like people in their constituents are stuck with them until the next election. Spineless splitters. But they split off from the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, and these are all obviously rabid Remainers, and they're trying to force a Remain. Now, I treated them with derision. I treated them with contempt. I did several videos on them, and I laughed my ass off at them, as you all did. It was pathetic, it really was, and this is the way it should have been treated. Then the second wave of attacks came because Tom Watson was meeting with Jeremy Corbyn. And I did videos about this because Tom Watson is trying to obviously force Jeremy Corbyn to pursue a course which would lead to a second referendum. You know, Tom Watson, let's face it, is a Blairite. He stands for all the things that Jeremy Corbyn and Jeremy Corbyn's supporters, his base, stand against. You know, and Jeremy Corbyn, bless him, whatever he does, when he's negotiating with people, he always tries to reach out and negotiate with people. But on this occasion, I said, in fact, at the end of the video, I literally said, I beg you, don't capitulate to them, tell them to bugger off. And the next thing I know, there were reports that he's backing a second referendum. And it all happened very quickly like that. He met with Tom Watson and that was it. All over. He was backing a second referendum. Now, when this news came out that he was backing a second referendum, and it was headlines in the BBC, etc., and everybody was making assumptions and saying this is terrible, blah, 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 I started thinking, my first thought was, right, okay, what the fuck are you doing? The fuck are you doing? My first thought was, you have just thrown 25% probably of all the people in the United Kingdom north of Milton Keynes overboard. And what they think and what they care about with regards to Brexit, overboard. That was my second thought. First one, what the hell are you thinking? Second one, you've just thrown them overboard. For instance, I touched on this in a video I did the other day. I live in the West Midlands. I live in Wolverhampton. My constituency voted to leave the EU 2-1, almost. 63, 64%. It was almost 2-1. So you would think there our MP would reflect that in her votes, and no. She's a good MP, I thought, as well. And the more I've actually looked into her history, the more I'm finding, hold on a minute. Yeah, she wasn't all I thought she was after all. So Emma Reynolds is actually, she's been pushing for a people's vote, for a second referendum, in an area of the Black Country that has been ravaged by neoliberalism, that the EU and globalisation has destroyed, because the Black Country was a massive manufacturing hub. It was where the manufacturing was done, mainly in the West Midlands. My grandfather used to make Spitfire planes down the road from where I live. And it's been devastated, the area has, because of globalisation, because of neoliberal constructs like the EU. which drive down wages, and manufacturing jobs go bye-bye to China, to Vietnam, to Taiwan, etc. So these jobs, these people who have seen these jobs go, then saw a wave of Eastern European immigration as a result of all the wars. Obviously, we're bombing in the Middle East and all the flood into, and etc. And obviously, Eastern Europe is not doing too good within the EU. Surprise, surprise, it's a neoliberal construct. Really, only efficient exporters do well out of it. So all of the Eastern Europeans then flood into the Western Europe and into the United Kingdom, and then get exploited more than we can exploit the British workers over here. So guess what? Those British workers, A, are now out of a job, and B, the jobs that they can get hold of are all gig economy jobs with no guaranteed hours of work, etc., etc., etc. This is why they're saying no to the EU. I know this. I live right in the heart of it. Pursuing a second referendum is sticking the middle finger up to those people. That is your base support you are messing about with there. That's your base. All of these things are going through my mind, and none of them are good. None of them. None of these thoughts are good that are coming through my mind at the time. And then I see this, because Labour wanted to make a point of this. They wanted to make a big point that no, they said, no, they're not backing a second referendum. Actually, look, what we're saying is the full text of Labour's amendment to be tabled tomorrow reads that this House instructs ministers, A, to negotiate with the EU for changes to the political declaration to secure, 1, a permanent and comprehensive customs union with the EU. Okay, so what they're saying here is no. What the amendment is to say, right, okay, you go to the EU and you get these 5 things, and then we can have a Brexit. If you don't get these 5 things, then we will pursue a second referendum. Right, okay, so that's exactly what they've said. They haven't said that they will pursue a second referendum, just, you know, if they can't get these 5 things. But here's the problem. Number 1, a permanent and comprehensive customs union with the EU. That crosses a red line in the red line of the EU unless it comes with it, you guessed it, free movement of people. How are they going to get that when it crosses an EU line? You can't have a permanent and comprehensive customs union with the EU. They are going to say no, not unless you have free movement of people. Now that, again, is going to be a red line in the sand for, guess what, your base. Base from, I don't know, the Midlands, in areas that have been screwed by globalisation and neoliberalism. This is not rocket science. But they've never explained how they're going to do that, by the way. Never. Never explained how they're going to do that and get over the fact that it's a red line for the EU. And obviously all these other things. Now, obviously this is impossible. What they're saying there is, you know, if you get these 5 things done, then we will vote for your Brexit or whatever. But the thing is, they're not saying that, really. This is what they're saying, but they're not. Because essentially what they're asking May to do here is to get these things added to the non-binding agreement that is outside and attached to the May's agreement that the EU have said they're not going to open, that Labour are not backing anyway. So what is the point of all this? What is the point of all this charade? Just come out and say you're backing a second referendum. Because all of this is nonsense. This is the way I'm looking at it. It's nonsense. You're backing a second referendum. That's what you're doing. So to all these people who have been running around in Twitter saying, no, it doesn't mean that. What it means is this. Shut the hell up. This is nonsense. And then And then what happens is, if you start, saying this and explaining it to people on Twitter like I do, you start getting attacked by people who are obviously pro-Jeremy Corbyn. Now, I'm pro-Jeremy Corbyn, but that doesn't mean I can't look at him objectively and say, that's wrong, that's right. And you get torrents of people. This was decided in September, they say. This was decided at the party conference in September. Have you not been paying attention? Yes, to those people. I'm fully aware of that. I'm fully aware of in September. And I distinctly remember doing a video in September saying to people like you, are you insane? You support Jeremy Corbyn and the European Union? You can't do both of these things. Are you nuts? Seriously, you're advocating for the same thing that Tony Blair wants. Whenever you advocate for something that's the same thing that Tony Blair wants, has history not taught you in the past to go, hold on a minute, maybe I should question everything about everything ever that I've ever thought about ever because I just agreed with Tony Blair? Did you not think about that? Did you not think that Tony Blair would be taking a stance that if it got through would hurt Jeremy Corbyn? That's what he does. He wakes up in the morning thinking about ways of hurting Jeremy Corbyn. But you went along with him in September anyway and forced Jeremy Corbyn into a position where now he's thrown 25% of the people north of Milton Keynes overboard. That is the way they're going to see it. I'm not saying that that's what he's done. I'm saying that that is the way they are going to see it. I know it. I've talked to people who have said basically that thing to me. From an area that is distinctly pro-Leave and has been ravaged by neoliberalism, the very thing that we're trying to get away from with the EU, and now Jeremy Corbyn. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but let me get to that in a second. First of all, I've mentioned momentum a few times on my channel, and I've never done a video about them. I've never come down hard on them. I've seen a few things that they have done was ridiculous. Correct me if I'm wrong, weren't momentum pushing for this in September? I seem to remember a lot of momentum people pushing for this back in September. Now, if that is the case, and I will look into it more to see exactly what went on so I could cite things, but if that really is the case and my feeling is true, then they're doing the movement more harm than good, and they need to stop. I will look into that, and I'll be fair on them. But if they have been pushing this, as my memory banks seem to remember, you're doing more harm than good. You're agreeing with Tony Blair. That should be a big red warning flag everywhere. And if you want more proof that this is not good for Corbyn, if you want more proof that him backing this people's vote, as you've been trying to push him to do now for months, here is something Chuka Amuna retweeted yesterday after this news broke. By Siobhan McDonough, looks like the independent group have contributed to a big policy win for the People's Vote UK. Jeremy Corbyn, Emily Thornberry tell us UK Labour policy will be to support a people's vote. Congrats to all involved, but it would never have happened without these MPs. So to all those people, all those Labour members who have been pushing for this to happen, have been pushing Jeremy Corbyn, have been backing him into a corner where he is now faced with, actually, I have to back a people's vote because the party have forced me into it, and if I don't do it, I'm seen as undemocratic. You have pushed him into a position that have made the independent group here the winners. They're gloating on Twitter. Well done. Well done. I tried to warn you. I tried to warn you that pushing him into a position where second referendum is fallback is a bad move. I wasn't the only one. People who are far more experienced than me in politics were shouting it from the rooftops. George Galloway, I seem to remember, saying it was a very bad idea. Nobody listened to him. It doesn't matter that he's been basically right about everything for 30, 40 years with regards to the Labour Party. Nobody listened to him. That's my rant with regards to them over anyway. So if there is a vote, and if Article 50 is extended and we get a vote, and we get a people's vote, the question is obviously, what will the question be? You know, what will be the question on the ballot in a second referendum if it goes that way, which it looks like it will now. It looks like it's certain for Article 50 to be extended and a people's vote to happen. Because let's face it, May, chances of her getting through a deal in the next few weeks, especially as I've been saying for forever, she doesn't want to give you Brexit, they're trying to delay it. Is the question going to be May's deal versus Remain? And if that's the case, which way will Labour actually vote? Well, we don't have to hypothesise on that. We know, because Emily Thornberry actually went on Channel 4 and told Krishnanguru Murthy it. This is 2 minutes and 20 seconds long. It's towards the end. That really worries me. Take a listen.
She hasn't tried to engage Parliament at all. You know, she lost her vote by 230, wasn't it? You know, the beginning of January, and she keeps asking for more time and more time and more time.
But what is your policy on the referendum?
So we think her game is my deal or no deal, and we think that her deal is disastrous. We think that no deal is disastrous. And so if that is what the choice is, then we will be asking for that to go before the public, for there to be a public vote.
And the question would be between what? Between no deal and the deal? Or would Remain be an option?
I mean, the difficulty is to a certain extent, we have to react to what it is that she does. So we're not entirely sure how this is going to play out. But what we're saying is that if we can't get our deal through, if we can't get through what we think is entirely reasonable, then anything else will be a disastrous Tory Brexit, and we would ask for the public to be able to have a vote on that.
Are you saying it's possible you could back a referendum that didn't have Remain on the list of choices?
No. So what I'm saying is that we would have a referendum on whatever deal it is that may or may not pass through Parliament, and we would be saying to the people, do you want this or do you want to remain? And so it would be like a confirmation referendum, a bit like what happened with the Good Friday Agreement. So that would be it. So there would be no Tory Brexit without there being a vote from the public.
Right. And which side of that referendum would you be on personally? Would you back the government's Brexit, or would you suggest we remain in the European Union?
Oh, listen, it's no secret. I think that it is in Britain's interest for us to remain in the European Union. I've always thought so, and I continue to think so. And so if there is a vote of that sort, I certainly will be campaigning for us to remain.
And would you be on the same side as Jeremy Corbyn?
Yeah, of course.
So he will definitely campaign in a referendum, in a second referendum, to remain in the European Union. You're in no doubt about that.
If it's a choice between a disastrous Tory Brexit or no deal and remaining, then that is what we will have to do.
And if that's what you have to do, and if it does come to that, Emily Thornberry, you will have just made sure that Jeremy Corbyn never, ever, ever becomes Prime Minister of this country. Ever. If that scenario plays out as she just explained it there, and the question on the ballot is May's deal versus Remain, and they back Remain, Jeremy Corbyn will never be Prime Minister of this country. Ever. And he'll probably lose. No, the Remain will win in that situation because May's deal is terrible. But you see my point. So the only aim really they should have now, if that's the case, and they are going to back this people's right, and it looks very much like they're going to do it. I can't see them backing out now. The question on the ballot is going to be the thing that either saves or sinks him. Because if that's the question, May's deal versus Remain is lost. And Tom Watson and Tony Blair and Chuka Umunna and all those others have won. Because if that's the scenario, forget it. Jeremy Corbyn's, he's finished. He's finished. He'll never be Prime Minister. Ever. Because the people who want to leave will never happen. But here's the thing. These are all hypothetical questions here that Krishnanguru Murthy is throwing out there. I've shown this so many times now. But look, every time a vote went against the EU, it was either ignored or they were made to vote again. So now you can pretty much add Britain, 2019, Brexit, no vote, 48% or whatever it is, or the lost vote, 48%, outcome, made to vote again. Now, I've lost count of the amount of times I've showed this and made this point, but this is what led me to, okay, this is where we're all going to land.
I told you so, I told you so, I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. Now in French, je te l'ai dit. Oui, c'est ça, je te l'ai dit. You want some German now, Denise, huh? Ich hab's gesagt. Ja, das stimmt, ich hab gesagt. I told you so.
So that it's not like May wants a Brexit anyway. It's not like the Tories want a Brexit. So when you actually look at this and you start thinking about all these things, what starts to become clear, at least to me, is this was a giant game of chicken almost between Jeremy Corbyn and Theresa May. And it was who was going to blink first. Was it going to be Jeremy Corbyn doing that and ending up backing a people's vote? Or was it going to be Theresa May in taking no deal off the table? Whoever blinks first loses. I think Jeremy Corbyn's just been forced to blink first by Chucker and the rest of the centrists in the Blairites. That's what it looks like to me. And what's worse is now we're in a position where the establishment have sort of almost made it seem as if they're trying to make it seem as if the EU is Hotel California, in that you can check out, but you can never leave. And this is what they're trying to make it out. It's not difficult, this isn't. It can be done. I've been saying over and over again, they cannot give you a Brexit as it stands, because to do that means more than likely, most possibly, the breakup of the United Kingdom, because it obviously would go against the Good Friday Agreement. Until they can get some sort of way around that, whether some technology is invented, that's not going to be the case. It's not going to happen. And no Prime Minister is going to do that and break up the United Kingdom. Theresa May has said it in a press conference.
Creating any form of customs border between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK would not respect that Northern Ireland is an integral part of the United Kingdom, in line with the principle of consent as set out clearly in the Belfast Good Friday Agreement. It is something I will never agree to. Indeed, in my judgment, it is something no British Prime Minister would ever agree to. No one wants a good deal more than me, but the EU should be clear. I will not overturn the result of the referendum, nor will I break up my country. We need serious engagement on resolving the two big problems in the negotiations, and we stand ready.
Going back to Krishnaguru Murthy there, and going back to Emily Thornberry and these hypothetical questions that they're having as to whether it will end up being May's deal versus Remain, I've got news for you. If you honestly want to push this being the course of action, that there being a second referendum and the two options on the ballot being Remain or May's deal, then do you know which option people are going to take? They're going to take option C. They're going to put on yellow vests and they are going to start trashing stuff and causing lots and lots of damage. So I've been waiting for a spark. You know it, my subscribers know it. I've been waiting for a spark. If it gets to that stage and it doesn't spark, I don't think it'll ever happen. I don't think this yellow vest movement will ever come over here if that doesn't spark it. Because what they are saying, by giving that scenario and trying to make that scenario a possibility and see how it floats, what they're saying is, you know what, 17.4 million people? You're not going to have a Brexit. We never had any intention of giving you a Brexit. Voting doesn't matter in this country. And once you get to the stage where voting doesn't matter, That's when the yellow vests are donned, and that's when the elites of this country start realising that, hold on a minute, wow, shit, there really is a lot more of them than there is of us. For more truly honest, independent media like the video you just saw, please subscribe and click the bell below as well so you get a notification of when I drop further videos. If you also like and share and comment on the video as well, that really helps with the algorithm and boosts exposure. And if you can support me, please do so. You can do with any of the avenues on the screen at the moment and below this video. You can support me for as little as $1 a month on Patreon, and every dollar helps. We need your support at the moment. We do not have an operating fourth estate. I'm sure you're aware, a functioning media holding power accountable is vital for democracy. At the moment, we haven't got it. So people like me are having to fill their shoes and do the job for them with your support. Thanks very much for your support. Till next time. Peace and take care.